There is a kind of sadness that does not introduce itself as sadness. It shows up quietly. You're in a room full of people. Someone is talking. Someone laughs. You smile at the right moments. You answer when someone asks you something. From the outside, nothing looks wrong. But inside, some quiet part of you feels far away. Not rejected. Not exactly lonely. Not anxious in a way you can easily explain. Just misplaced. You felt this. And because you didn't have a name for it, you probably reached for the closest words you knew. I'm just tired. I'm just in my head. I don't know. I feel strange. But sometimes, sad is too small for what is happening inside you. In the next few minutes, you may recognize 7 of these feelings, feelings you thought were only yours. Some come from old languages, some from psychology, some from writers trying to name what ordinary language never quite captured. This is not just a list of unusual words. It is a map of the hidden weather inside your life. Because once a feeling has a name, it becomes less foggy. Not gone, not fixed, but less shapeless, less lonely. And the first one begins in a place you've probably been before, surrounded by people, acting completely normal, while some quiet part of you feels like it does not belong there. The first strange feeling is not exactly loneliness. It is worse in a quieter way. You can be surrounded by people and still feel unreachable. You're sitting at a table with friends. Someone tells a story. Everyone laughs. You smile at the right moment. You ask a question when the conversation slows down. From the outside, you look fine. But inside, something is off. Not because anyone rejected you. Not because anyone was cruel. Not because anything obvious happened. You are there. But you do not feel fully there. It feels like everyone else found the rhythm of the room, and you are half a beat behind. You are speaking the right language, but not quite in your own voice. You know that feeling. Someone says, "You're quiet tonight." And you say, "Yeah, I'm just tired." But that is only the acceptable answer. The real answer is harder to say. I feel like I'm performing being here. That feeling has a name: monochopsis. Monochopsis is the subtle, persistent sense of being out of place. Not dramatically excluded, just quietly misplaced. And what makes it so painful is that nothing has to be wrong. People can be kind, the room can be normal, the conversation can be pleasant, and still, some part of you feels like it has nowhere to land. This is the part most people misunderstand. Feeling out of place does not always mean you are insecure. Sometimes it means the room only knows how to receive a smaller version of you. So here is the first practical question. What am I editing right now? Your opinion? Your humor? Your honesty? Your silence? Your needs? Your natural pace? Because sometimes you are not uncomfortable because you lack confidence. You are uncomfortable because you are translating yourself in real time. At work, you translate your real thoughts into safer sentences. With certain family members, you translate who you are now into the person they still expect you to be. In some friendships, you translate your depth into something lighter, so the room does not get awkward. And people may like the edited version, but being liked as a performance is not the same as being known. If this kind of video helps you put language to things you've felt but never known how to explain, leave a like. It genuinely helps this reach someone else who may need it. And if you want more calm, thoughtful videos about the hidden parts of being human, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Now stay with me, because monochopsis is not only about parties or crowded rooms. It can happen in a relationship. You are sitting beside someone on the couch. The television is on. Nothing is wrong enough to start a conversation about, but you feel miles away from each other. You are close in distance, far in truth. It can happen with people who love you, but only know one version of you. It can happen in places where you are accepted, but not really understood. It can happen in a group where nobody dislikes you, but nobody quite sees you either. That is why this feeling can be so confusing. You are not alone, but you are not at home. And there is a difference. Loneliness says, no one is here. Monochopsis says, People are here, but I still cannot arrive. That is a very specific ache. It is the ache of smiling while monitoring yourself, of speaking while holding back the sentence underneath, of leaving a normal evening completely drained because nothing bad happened, but you spent the whole night managing your own presence. That kind of tired is not just social tired. It is self-abandonment tired. So ask yourself something more honest. Am I being stretched or am I being erased? Those two feelings can look similar at first. Growth stretches you. It asks you to become braver, clearer, more open. It may feel uncomfortable, but something in you expands. Erasure is different. Erasure asks you to cut pieces off yourself so you can remain acceptable. Your honesty gets smaller. Your needs get quieter. Your personality becomes easier to digest. And after a while, you stop asking, "Do I belong here?" You start asking, "How small do I have to become to stay?" That is where this feeling becomes important. Not because every uncomfortable room is wrong for you. Some rooms require courage. Some relationships require patience. Some parts of you need to grow. But some rooms are not asking you to grow. They are asking you to disappear politely. Pay attention to where your body relaxes. Around certain people, your shoulders drop. Your voice comes out without rehearsal. Silence does not feel like failure. You do not have to prove that you are easy to be around. You can just be there. That is not a small thing. Your body often recognizes belonging before your mind can explain it. And when you find even one person, one room, one conversation where you do not have to translate your entire self, notice it. Because the goal is not to belong everywhere. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself just to belong somewhere. But the next strange feeling is different. Because sometimes the ache is not about feeling out of place in a room. Sometimes it begins with a message that does not arrive. And suddenly, your whole day starts depending on whether someone replies. A second strange feeling begins when your phone becomes louder than the room. You send the message. Then you put the phone down like you are not waiting. You try to act normal. You answer an email. You wash a cup. You walk into another room. But some quiet part of your attention stays behind, sitting next to the phone. Then you check. Nothing. And somehow, the silence is no longer silence. It starts becoming a story. Maybe they lost interest. Maybe you came on too strong. Maybe they are with someone else. Maybe that moment meant more to you than it meant to them. This feeling, surrounded by strangers, Omluthu gross kebanfero of nothers of new people and credit sight. That feeling has a name, limerence. Limerence is an intense emotional fixation on someone, often fueled by uncertainty. And that word matters, uncertainty, because the hook is not always the person. Sometimes the hook is not knowing what you are to them. Do they think about you when you are not there? Did they feel what you felt? Are they pulling away? Were you imagining the whole thing? That unanswered question becomes addictive. So here is the first practical move. Ask yourself, slowly, what do I actually know and what am I filling in? Not what do I hope. Not what do I fear. Not what would make the story feel better. What do I actually know? Because limerence turns your mind into a detective with almost no evidence. You replay the conversation. The pause before they answered. The way they looked at you. The short reply. The long reply. The fact that they watched your story but did not text back. Everything becomes a clue, and when your mind cannot find certainty, it starts manufacturing meaning. A hungry mind can turn crumbs into proof. That is where people get trapped. The feeling is real. The conclusion may not be. In background, stay with me here because this is the part that changes everything. Limerence often feels like love because it is intense. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. Intensity can come from uncertainty. Intimacy comes from reality. Real closeness usually makes you feel more grounded over time. You learn the person's character. Their actions and words start to match. You do not have to decode every small shift in tone like your peace depends on it. But limerence grows in the gaps. A warm moment followed by distance. A deep conversation followed by silence. A little attention, then withdrawal. Just enough hope to keep you reaching, not enough clarity to let you rest. That is why one notification can change your whole mood. And to guest, your energy returns. The day feels lighter. Then they go quiet again, and everything collapses. That is not romance. That is your nervous system being handed to someone who may not even know they are holding it. And if you have been there, do not use this as another reason to shame yourself. Shame will not free you. Clarity will. The deeper question is, what am I asking this person to prove? That I am wanted, that I mattered, that I was not imagining the connection, that I am finally chosen, that hunger is human. It becomes dangerous when one person's attention becomes the place where you go to measure your worth. Sometimes you are not attached to the person as much as you are attached to the version of yourself you become when they want you. More alive, more interesting, more possible, more seen. That is the hidden pull. You do not only want them, you want the self they seem to wake up in you. So ask one more clean question. Do I know this person deeply, or do I mostly know the feeling they create in me? That question can hurt, but it can also bring you back. Because sometimes what feels like destiny is actually uncertainty dressed as meaning. Sometimes what feels like love is your mind trying to finish a story the other person never clearly agreed to write with you. You can want someone without surrendering your mind. You can feel the pull without obeying every interpretation it creates. You can let it be a message, not a verdict on your value. That is what naming the feeling gives you. Not control over them, and more the control over the story you build around their silence. Because sometimes it is not love speaking. Sometimes it is uncertainty wearing a beautiful face, and the next strange feeling is different. It does not begin with a person you want. It begins with a place you used to know. Ain't him people. A room, a season of your life that still exists somewhere, but no longer exists the way your heart remembers it. The third strange feeling begins when you go back somewhere and realize the place is still there, but what you were looking for is gone. You drive past an old street. You did not plan to. Maybe traffic sent you that way. Maybe you were following a map. Maybe you were not thinking about the past at all. Then you see it. The house. The corner. The school fence. The window where a light used to be on. And something in your body reacts before your mind has time to explain it. Nothing dramatic happens. You do not cry. You do not stop the car. You do not say anything out loud. But for a second, some part of you reaches backward. You know this feeling. A place can still exist and still be gone. That feeling has a name. Hireth. Hireth is a deep longing for a home, a time, a place, or a version of life you cannot truly return to. And this is what makes it different from ordinary nostalgia. Nostalgia says, "That was a good time." Hireth says, "Some part of me still lives there." That is why it can hurt so quietly. Because the street may still be there. The building may still be there. The trees may be taller. Someone else may live in the house now. The room may have new furniture, new paint, new silence. But even if everything looked exactly the same, you would not be the same person walking back in. That is the part people rarely say out loud. Sometimes you are not missing the place. You are missing who you were before life changed you. So here is the question that can make this feeling clearer. Am I missing where I was? Or am I missing who I was when I was there? That question matters. Because sometimes the ache is not really about a house, a city, a relationship, or a season. It is about lightness, the version of you who did not know certain endings were coming. The version of you who thought some people would always be close. The version of you who lived through ordinary days without realizing they would become unreachable. You open an old photo, a messy kitchen, a cheap couch, someone laughing in the background, a room that did not feel special when you were inside it. At the time, it was just life. Now it feels like evidence. Evidence that you belonged somewhere once. Evidence that there was a world where certain voices were still nearby, certain routines still existed, and certain losses had not happened yet. That is why Hiraeth can hurt even when nothing terrible happened. No explosion. No final goodbye. No single moment where everything broke. Life just moved forward. And that was enough. A friendship became occasional. A family changed shape. A bedroom became storage. A neighborhood was rebuilt. A voice you used to hear every day became harder to remember. Nothing vanished all at once. The world simply rearranged itself while you were busy surviving. And then, one day you looked back and realized, I can visit the place, but I cannot return to the life. Stay with that, because this explains why going back often does not fix it. You think, maybe if I drive there, I'll feel it again. Maybe if I hear that song. Maybe if I call that person. Maybe if I look through those pictures one more time. And sometimes you do feel something, but not the thing itself. Only the echo, because the home you miss may not be a location. It may be a state of being, the feeling of being safe before you understood how fragile safety was, surrounded before you understood distance, young before you knew you were young, loved in a way that felt ordinary because you had not yet learned how rare ordinary love can become. That is the wound inside Hiraeth. You are grieving a version of yourself that could only exist under those exact conditions, with those people, in that room, before that ending, before that knowledge, before time did what time does. And this is why the feeling is so hard to explain. How do you tell someone, I miss a place I can still visit? How do you say, I miss a life that was not perfect, but it was mine? You may not say it, but your body remembers. The smell of the hallway, the sound of a door closing, the kind of evening light that used to fall across the floor. Years later, one small thing brings it back. A song in a grocery store, rain on a certain morning, a photo you forgot was still on your phone. Suddenly, you are not here. You are there. Not fully. Just enough to ache. But Hiraeth is not only pain. It is also proof that you belonged somewhere deeply enough for time to leave a mark. So maybe the answer is not to force yourself to stop missing it. Maybe it is to say, that was real. I can honor it without trying to live there again, because the past can be carried, but it cannot be moved back into. And the next strange feeling is even more confusing, because sometimes you do not miss a past you actually lived. Sometimes you miss a life, a decade, a world, or a version of yourself that never happened at all. The fourth strange feeling begins when you miss a life that was never yours. You're scrolling late at night. An old video appears, a street from another decade, people walking without phones in their hands, a family sitting in a kitchen with warm yellow light, a city before everything looked optimized, branded, and recorded. Nothing about it belongs to you. You were not there. You did not live in that house. You did not walk down that street. You did not know those people. And still, something in you aches. You know this feeling. It is not memory. It is homesickness for a world your body never entered. That feeling has a name, anemoia. Anemoia is nostalgia for a time you have never known. And at first, that sounds impossible. How can you miss a past that was never yours? How can a song from another era make you feel like you lost something? But your mind does this all the time. It takes fragments, old photos, home videos, music, stories, clothes, buildings, voices recorded on tape, and builds an emotional world around them. Then it starts longing for the world it built, not the real past, the imagined past. That distinction matters. So here is the question that makes this feeling useful. Am I missing the past, or am I missing what I imagine the past would have given me? Because most of the time, you are not longing for the actual decade. You are longing for a feeling, slowness, belonging, texture, presence, a life that seems less interrupted. You look at an old photo and imagine people were more connected, more grounded, less distracted. You imagine rooms had more meaning. Conversations lasted longer. Love felt less disposable. Days had weight. And maybe some of that was true, but not all of it. The past looks warmer when you only see what survived. You see the beautiful photo, not the argument after dinner. The old song, not the lonely night. The family table, not the silence between people. The style, not the fear, pressure, boredom, or ordinary pain. You are not seeing the whole past. You are seeing its best evidence. And yet, the ache is still real. That is the part worth paying attention to. Because anemoia may not be telling you to go backward. It may be telling you that your present has become too thin, too fast, too digital, too disposable, too full of moments you consume, but do not actually inhabit. Stay with that. Sometimes you do not want another decade. You want your own life to feel less like something you are scrolling through. That is the hidden value of anemoia. It points to a hunger for real objects, for slower evenings, for rooms that feel lived in, for conversations without a screen between every pause, for memories made with your body, not just collected with your eyes. So instead of asking, "Why wasn't I born in that time?" ask something better. What quality am I craving, and how can I bring a piece of it into my life now? If you miss slowness, where can you stop rushing for 10 minutes? If you miss texture, what can you touch, make, cook, write, repair, or hold? If you miss presence, who can you sit with without checking your phone? If you miss beauty, what part of your ordinary day can you make less empty? That is how this feeling becomes practical. You do not have to worship a past you never lived. You can listen to what the longing is trying to reveal. But there is a danger here too. Anemoia can make your real life feel inferior to a world that never fully existed. You compare your messy present to the most beautiful fragments of someone else's past. And of course your life loses. Real life always looks less romantic while you are living it. The dishes are there, the bills are there, the tired mornings, the awkward conversations, the bad lighting, the unfinished plans. But one day, some ordinary piece of this life may become the thing you miss. The room you barely notice now. The person casually texting you. The route you drive every week. The voice in the next room. One day, this may become the old photograph. Maybe yours. So do not only look backward with longing. Look around with attention, because the life you are romanticizing later is probably being lived imperfectly right now. Anemoia is the ache for an unlived past. But underneath it is a warning. Do not let your real life become something you only learn to love after it is gone. And the next strange feeling moves from time into space. Because sometimes it is not the past that feels strange. It is the room itself. A school with no students. A mall after closing. A hallway built for noise, now completely silent. And somehow, the emptiness feels alive. The fifth strange feeling begins when a place feels like it is remembering people who are no longer there. You know this feeling. Guests leave your house after a long evening. For hours, the room was alive. People talking over each other. Glasses on the table. Someone laughing from the kitchen. Chairs moved out of place. Music low in the background. That warm, messy feeling of life happening all at once. Then the door closes, and suddenly the room changes. The couch is still there. The cups are still on the table. The lights are still on. But the room feels different. Not empty exactly. More like interrupted. Like something was supposed to keep happening, and then stopped. That feeling has a name, canopsia. Canopsia is the strange atmosphere of a place that is usually full of life, but is now empty. A school after hours. A mall after closing. An office late at night. A church on a weekday. A stadium after the crowd has gone home. Nothing is dangerous, but something feels off. Because the place was built for presence. Footsteps. Voices. Movement. Noise. Someone being there. And when that presence disappears, you do not just notice silence. You feel where life should be. That is the important part. Canopsia is not just emptiness. It is expected life missing. A classroom without students does not feel the same as an empty field. A theater with no audience does not feel the same as a quiet forest. An airport terminal with no travelers does not feel peaceful in a simple way. It feels paused, like the place is waiting for the people it was designed to hold. Here is the practical question. What presence is this place asking me to remember? Because sometimes the strange feeling is not about the room. It is about what the room used to contain. A bedroom after someone moves out. A kitchen after the family changes. A desk after a coworker leaves. A hallway after a house becomes quiet. The walls may still be there, but the atmosphere has changed, and your body knows before your mind does. Stay with this because it explains something deeper. Places are not neutral to us. We attach people to them. We attach routines to them. We attach versions of life to them. A chair becomes where he used to sit. A doorway becomes where she used to call your name. A table becomes where everyone used to gather before things became different. Then one day, you walk into the same space, and the space tells you what changed. That is why Canopsia can feel almost eerie. Not because the place is haunted, because it is full of absence, and absence can have weight. Think about an office late at night. During the day, you may be tired of the noise, the small talk, the interruptions, the phones, the footsteps, the person who talks too loudly near the coffee machine. Then one night, you stay late. The monitors are dark. A chair is pushed back slightly. Someone's mug is still beside a keyboard. The carpet absorbs every step you take. And suddenly you realize the place was never just furniture. It was people. That is the hidden value of Canopsia. It reminds you that atmosphere is made of ordinary presence. The sounds you get tired of may one day become the sounds you miss. The small interruptions you overlook may be proof that life is still happening around you. The background noise you barely notice may be what makes a place feel inhabited. That does not mean every noisy room is good. Some spaces are draining. Some people bring chaos. Some presence does not feel safe. But Canopsia teaches you something quiet. You often understand what filled a place only after it leaves. And that can make you more awake inside the life you still have. The next time a room feels strange because it is too quiet, do not rush to cover it with your phone. Pause for a second. Ask, what used to live here? Maybe the answer is people. Maybe it is routine. Maybe it is laughter. Maybe it is a version of your life that has already moved on. And maybe the ache is not telling you to be afraid. Maybe it is telling you to notice. To notice the ordinary sounds while they are still ordinary. To notice the people while they are still in the room. To notice the season of life before it quietly becomes a memory. Because one day, the room may be silent, and the silence may tell you what you used to have. That is Canopsia. The feeling of absence becoming visible. But the next strange feeling is more personal. Because sometimes the emptiness is not in a room. Sometimes someone is trying to come closer, and without fully understanding why, you start building distance before they can reach you. The sixth strange feeling begins when you miss people, but still avoid them when they reach for you. A friend texts, "Do you want to get dinner this week?" You see the message, and for a second, something in you warms up. You do want to see them. You do miss laughing without forcing it. You do miss being around someone who knows you. But almost immediately, another part of you tightens. You imagine the effort, the questions, the possibility of being too quiet, the risk of being seen before you know how to explain yourself. So you wait. Then you send the safest answer. "Sorry, I've been busy." And maybe you have been busy. But that is not the whole truth. The whole truth is more painful. I want connection, but I keep protecting myself from it. You know this feeling. That feeling has a name, Mauerboer Traurigkeit. It roughly means the sadness of the wall builder, the urge to push people away, even when you do not really want to be alone. And this is why it hurts so much. The wall works at first. When you say no, you feel relief. No pressure, no explaining, no emotional labor. No risk of being misunderstood, disappointed, judged, needed, exposed, or drained. Distance feels safe. For a while. Then the quiet changes. It stops feeling peaceful. It starts feeling empty, and suddenly, you are lonely behind a wall you helped build. That is the trap. You wanted protection, but you accidentally created isolation. So here is the first question that matters. What am I protecting myself from right now? Not, what excuse am I using? What am I protecting myself from? Being judged, being needed, being disappointed again, being seen too clearly, having to admit I am not okay. That question is important because not all distance is the same. Solitude restores you. Avoidance slowly makes your world smaller. Solitude says, I need to come back to myself. Avoidance says, I cannot risk being reached. They can look almost identical from the outside. You stay home. You cancel. You reply late. You keep things quiet. But afterward, they feel different. Real solitude leaves you more whole. Avoidance leaves you more separate. Stay with that. Because the answer is not to force yourself to be available to everyone. That is not maturity. That is another kind of self-abandonment. Some invitations deserve a no. Some people drain you. Some distance is healthy. Some silence is necessary. But this feeling is different. Trauerigkeit is what happens when you push away something you actually want, because closeness has started to feel unsafe. Maybe at some point, needing people cost you too much. Maybe honesty was punished. Maybe closeness came with control. Maybe being available meant being drained. Maybe you learned that if someone gets close enough, they eventually use what they know. So now, even safe people can feel dangerous. Not because they are dangerous, because being reachable is, and the wall goes up quickly. A delayed reply, a vague excuse, a joke instead of honesty, a sudden desire to disappear. You tell yourself, I just need space. And sometimes that is true. But sometimes what you need is not more space. Sometimes what you need is one safe opening. Not a dramatic confession. Not a long emotional explanation. Just one honest sentence that keeps the door from closing completely. Try this. I've been distant lately, but it's not because I don't care. Or, I want to see you. I'm just having a hard time getting out of my own head. Or, I may be slow to respond right now, but I don't want you to think you don't matter to me. Simple. Human. No performance. Because sometimes repair begins when you stop pretending the wall is the same thing as peace. Pay attention to the moment before you disappear. That moment matters. Before you cancel, before you ignore the message, before you convince yourself nobody really cares anyway, there is a small space. In that space, ask, am I choosing rest or am I choosing disappearance? That question can change the whole pattern. Because rest has an ending. Disappearance keeps extending itself. Rest says, I will return. The disappearance says, do not look for me. And if you have been hurt before, disappearance can feel intelligent. It can feel like control. It can feel like finally protecting yourself. But a locked door does not only keep danger out, it can also keep love from entering. That is the cruel part. The same habit that saved you once may be starving you now. And if you have lived too long behind walls, closeness may not feel comforting at first. It may feel exposed. A kind person may feel suspicious. A gentle question may feel invasive. An invitation may feel like a demand. That does not always mean the person is unsafe. Sometimes it means your system is still treating connection like a threat. So move slowly. Let one safe person come 1 inch closer than your reflex wants to allow. Answer honestly but briefly. Say, "I'm not ready to talk about everything, but I don't want to disappear." That is enough. You do not have to tear down the whole wall in one night. You only have to stop adding bricks every time someone knocks. Lauerbortrarigkeit is the sadness of wanting connection and fearing the cost of it. It is the ache of being protected and trapped by the same habit. And once you can name it, you can start noticing the exact moment protection becomes isolation. But the next strange feeling is even larger, because sometimes the pain is not about one person trying to come close. Sometimes it is about realizing you only get one life, while your mind can imagine thousands you will never live. The seventh strange feeling begins when you realize you do not get to live every life you can imagine. You only get this one. And some nights, that feels heavier than usual. You're scrolling in bed, too tired to do anything meaningful, but not tired enough to stop looking. Someone is living in a cabin in the mountains. Someone is raising children by the ocean. Someone is building a company in a city that makes your life feel too quiet. Someone is traveling through places you may never see. And suddenly, your own life feels smaller. Not terrible, just limited. You know this feeling. Every life you see reminds you of a life you are not living. That feeling has a name: onism. Onism is the frustration of being stuck in one body, one timeline, one set of choices, while your mind can imagine thousands of lives you will never experience. And the modern world makes this feeling brutal, because you are not only living your life anymore, you are watching other possible lives all day. A different city, a different career, a different relationship, a different body, a different kind of freedom, a different version of you. And each one quietly asks, what if? What if I had moved? What if I had stayed? What if I had chosen differently? What if I am becoming one person while all the other versions of me disappear? That question can haunt you if you do not know what to do with it. So here is the practical question. Is this longing asking me to choose something, or is it helping me avoid the life I already chose? That question matters, because onism can be useful, or it can become a trap. Sometimes it points to a real desire, a place you actually want to go, a conversation you need to have, a change you have postponed for years, a part of yourself that has been waiting too long to be taken seriously. But sometimes onism is not a calling. Sometimes it is escape wearing beautiful clothes. You sit at dinner, but your mind is in another city. You drive home, but your mind is in another career. You lie beside someone, but your mind is wondering who you might have become with someone else. You are not leaving your life, but you are not fully living it either. That is the danger. You do not have to hate your life to be absent from it. You only have to keep comparing it to lives that exist mostly as highlights, fantasies, and unfinished possibilities. Stay with this. Every choice gives you something, but every choice also closes something. The city you live in means other cities became unlived. The person you became means other versions of you stayed possible, but unreal. The path you chose gave you a real life, and it also buried 100 imaginary ones. That is not failure. That is finitude. A life has shape because it has limits. If you could live every possible version, none of them would carry weight. Nothing would matter, because nothing would cost anything. But your choices matter because they cost. That is why onism hurts. And that is also why your life can mean something. So ask yourself something grounded. What part of the life I envy can I build in a smaller, real way? If you envy the person by the ocean, maybe you do not need a new life. Maybe you need more mornings outside. If you envy the artist, maybe you do not need to abandon everything. Maybe you need to make something for 1 honest hour a week. If you envy the person who seems free, maybe the question is not, how do I become them? Maybe it is, where am I still living by permission? That is where the feeling becomes useful. Do not worship every life you are not living. Extract the message. Because distance edits everything. You see the beach, not the loneliness. The city lights, not the rent. The perfect family photo, not the argument in the car. The freedom, not the uncertainty. The success, not the pressure that came with it. You are comparing your full life to someone else's window. Of course, yours feels heavier. You live inside the unedited version. But one day, some ordinary part of this life may become the thing you miss. The kitchen you barely notice. The street you drive every week. The person texting you casually. The morning light you keep rushing past. You may be living inside a memory right now and missing it in advance. That is the warning inside onism. You only get one life from the inside, not because the others are meaningless, but because this is the only one asking to be lived. And once you understand that, all 7 feelings begin to point toward something deeper. They are not random moods. They are messages. The real question is whether you know how to listen without letting them take over your life. Here is the strange thing about finally naming a feeling. At first, it feels like relief. You hear the word, and something in you exhales. Monochopsis, limerence, hyreth, anemoia, canopsia, Mauerbortraurigkeit, onism. Suddenly, the fog has edges. The feeling that used to move through you without a shape becomes something you can point to and say, that is what this is. And that matters, because unnamed feelings often disguise themselves as other things. Feeling out of place becomes, something is wrong with me. Obsession becomes, this must be love. Missing the past becomes, my best life is behind me. Wanting another life becomes, I chose everything wrong. But once you name the feeling, you interrupt the story. You create a small space between what you feel and what the feeling is trying to convince you is true. That space is where maturity begins. Not because the feeling disappears, because now you can look at it. But stay with me here, because this is the part people miss. A name can free you, or it can become another prison. You can say, I am feeling out of place tonight. That is useful. But if you say, I am a person who never belongs anywhere, now the feeling has become your identity. You can say, this is limerence. My mind may be filling in gaps. That is useful. But if you say, this proves I will never be wanted unless this person chooses me, now the feeling has taken over the room. The feeling is real. The conclusion may not be. That is the line. And learning that line may change the way you handle almost every difficult emotion in your life. So here is the practical move. When one of these strange feelings shows up, do not immediately ask, how do I get rid of this? Ask 3 better questions. First, what is this feeling? Name it as clearly as you can. This is longing. This is uncertainty. This is displacement. This is grief for a version of life I cannot return to. This is the ache of comparing my real life to imagined ones. Second, what is this feeling trying to show me? Not command, show. There is a difference. A feeling may show you that you miss belonging, but it may command you to shrink yourself for acceptance. A feeling may show you that you want clarity, but it may command you to chase someone's silence all night. A feeling may show you that you want more life in your life, but it may command you to despise the life you actually have. Do not obey every command. Listen for the information. Third, what is one honest action I can take without letting this feeling control me? That is where the feeling becomes useful. If you feel out of place, the honest action may be to stop editing yourself for one sentence. If you feel limerence, the honest action may be to separate facts from fantasy before you send another message. If you feel hyreth, the honest action may be to honor the past without trying to move back into it. If you feel onism, the honest action may be to build one small piece of the life you keep imagining. This is how you stop being swallowed by your inner weather. You do not deny it. You read it. If these videos help you understand the things you have felt but never had words for, subscribe. I want this channel to be a quiet place where complicated human experiences become easier to hold. Now listen closely. All 7 of these feelings have one thing in common. They appear at the edges of your life. At the edge between belonging and performance. Between love and uncertainty. Between memory and loss. Between solitude and avoidance. Between the life you have and the lives you will never live. They show up where something in you is asking for attention. And that is why you should not dismiss them too quickly. The strange feeling may be uncomfortable, but it may also be intelligent. It may be pointing to a room where you keep shrinking. A person you have given too much power. A past you are still trying to enter. A present you have stopped inhabiting. A wall you keep building. A life you keep comparing to every life except the one in your hands. So maybe the question is not, how do I stop feeling this? Maybe the better question is, what is this feeling asking me to finally notice? Because once you can answer that, the feeling changes. It is no longer just a mood. It becomes a doorway. And the final part is learning how to walk through that doorway without getting lost inside it. The purpose of naming a feeling is not to make it disappear. That is the first thing to understand. You can learn the word monochopsis and still feel out of place in a room. You can understand limerence and still feel your chest tighten when the message does not come. You can recognize Hireth and still ache when you pass the street you used to know. A name does not remove the human part. It gives you a way to meet it without being swallowed by it. That is the quiet difference. Before a feeling has language, it can become everything. A strange room becomes, I do not belong anywhere. A silent phone becomes, I am not wanted. An old photo becomes, the best part of my life is gone. A beautiful life online becomes, I chose wrong. But once you can name what is happening, even softly, something changes. You are no longer trapped inside a fog with no edges. You can say, this is what I am feeling. And then, just as important, this is not all that I am. That sentence can save you more than you think. Because feelings are powerful, but they are not always accurate narrators. They tell the truth about what is happening inside you. But they do not always tell the truth about what life means. Loneliness may tell you nobody will ever understand you. Longing may tell you the past was the only place you were whole. Uncertainty may tell you to keep chasing someone's attention until you finally feel chosen. Fear may tell you every wall is protection. But a feeling can be real and still not be the final authority. That is emotional maturity. Not becoming cold. Not becoming untouched. Not pretending you are above the ache of being human. It is learning to listen without surrendering. So when one of these 7 feelings appears again, do something slower than panic and more honest than distraction. Name it if you can. Then ask, what is this feeling trying to show me? Maybe it is showing you where you keep shrinking. Maybe it is showing you where you have confused intensity with love. Maybe it is showing you that a part of your present has become too thin, too rushed, too disconnected from anything real. Maybe it is showing you that the wall you built for safety has started to cost you connection. Maybe it is reminding you that your one life is not infinite, and that is exactly why it deserves your attention. That is the value hidden inside these strange feelings. They are not random moods. They are signals from the edges of your life. The edge between belonging and performance, between memory and grief, between desire and obsession, between solitude and disappearance, between the life you imagined and the life that is actually in your hands. And maybe the point is not to fix every ache the moment it appears. Maybe some feelings are not asking to be fixed first. Maybe they are asking to be understood. Because once you understand them, you can respond differently. You can leave the room where you keep abandoning yourself. You can stop turning one person's silence into a verdict on your worth. You can honor the past without trying to live inside it. You can build small pieces of beauty into your present instead of only romanticizing another time. You can let one safe person come closer than your fear wants to allow. You can return to the life in front of you before it becomes another thing you only learn to love after it is gone. That is not a small thing. That is how a person becomes less ruled by their inner weather, not by controlling every storm, but by learning what the storm is made of. So if one of these 7 feelings describes something you have carried quietly, leave a sincere comment and tell me which one it was. Subscribe if you want more calm, thoughtful videos like this. Share this with 5 people who might need a word for something they have never been able to explain. And tell me what topic you want me to explore next. Because somewhere in your life, there may still be a feeling you have been calling sadness, tiredness, nostalgia, or overthinking, when really, it has been waiting for language. And sometimes, the moment you finally name what you have been carrying, you realize you were never the only one carrying it.